You are now watching On Point, a news and public affairs show from California State University, Northridge.
Hello, welcome to On Point. I'm your host, Carolina Tello. Today we will talk about how small businesses have been impacted by inflation, the importance of supporting small businesses, and how local shops thrive with the help of Yelp reviews, and what sets them apart from larger corporations. Small businesses provide more than jobs for local communities. They provide creative new ways of making revenue. Fresh perspectives from an entrepreneurial mindset can set them apart from large corporations and inspire others to do the same. Small businesses have high hopes, but inflation is the top concern, with rising interest rates. A large majority of small businesses report credit cards as a top source of funding their pursuits. Now we are joined here with Miriam Frutos, as well as Marc Monroy. Can you guys tell me, have you guys ever bought from a small business before?
Yeah, there's actually this very lovely bakery down the street from where I live. It's called Miracle Bakery. It's owned by husband and wife, and all of their employees are actually their family. So one thing I've noticed is that everything comes out always the same, and you can tell that they really put a lot of hard work into every product that they give you. And when you think about, you spending your money, when you're buying from a small business, you're not just funding a third yacht with large corporations. You're helping a family pay their bills, or maybe put their kids through school, or send them to any sort of extracurricular activity. So I personally prefer, when I can, to shop at smaller businesses.
How about you?
All the time. Anytime I get the chance, I always try to shop at small businesses. Especially, I'm a big foodie. I eat a lot. So every time I like to go out to eat, I like to look at small businesses, see what's going up. I really love Armenian food. Every time I'm in the Glendale area, I always look at what's out there, especially when it's family owned. As Miriam said, I'd rather fund someone's mortgage payment than fund a billionaire's yacht. So every time I get the chance, I always try to do small business.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've definitely bought from small businesses myself as well. I think it's interesting thinking about the fact that a lot of them are family ran. That's crazy to think that they are supporting each other within the family to help this business grow. What do you guys think about keeping it in the family, helping them, helping your family members elevate their business in any way?
I had an uncle who used to run a business, a carniceria, a butcher shop in Panorama City. And when my parents first immigrated here, specifically my dad, my uncle had him help in the store. And keeping that family dynamic is super important, I believe, especially when it comes to small businesses. The sense of community you get when it is a small business compared to if you go to McDonald's, or if you go to a Walmart, compared to if you go to the local bodega on the corner. And unfortunately, that business went out during the '08 recession. But I always think it's important to have that community sense, especially when it comes to small business.
Yeah, with a lot of the small businesses, there's one that's been probably the second generation. It started by the dad, now the son's running it. They're still, keeping up, even though they had to shut down earlier with COVID. It's been from what I've talked to them, it's been a little bit of an issue trying to get back to the place that they were at. But not only that, but when the business is transferred from the original owner, like the dad, to now the son, I think a lot of the customers were kind of weary, is the quality going to stay the same? Is the flavor going to stay the same? As somebody who visited them before, and right now I'm it has stayed the same. I think that when the family is really invested into this is what we want to do, we want to keep this legacy, we want to pass this on to our even to their kids, their grandkids, and so forth. I think there's just so much more that goes into it than I'm doing a job, or I'm going to be working this restaurant from this hour to this hour.
Yeah, and Marc, you actually got to talk to a small video store business. Let's take a look at that.
I have another great person in my life who cares about me simply because of this place.
It's a place that stood the test of time. Newhall's very first and very last video shop that has outlasted the giants of the old days that are long gone.
Yeah, because Blockbuster and Hollywood Video, small video shop almost they kill for every video shop. Small video shop, small. And then we still there. Still here now.
Video Depot has kept that same tradition and laughters that it's brought its customers for nearly 4 decades.
It's just amazing to come in here and just have that experience of being able to look for something that jumps out to you on the shelves that like you didn't even know you wanted to see.
With movies such as Glory, Gina has managed to keep this store open despite the rapidly changing industry in the form of streaming services. But one question still lingers. How did she manage that change?
I appreciate my customer. Thank you for my customer because they come here, they supporting. That's why.
It's the customer support that's made it more about connections than actual money. Gina says that in many instances, people were pleased to pay more than the actual rental price.
This movie only one movie, $3.96. She paid $10. I say, no, I don't want
We pass our counter, she's like genuinely interested in us as people. She's like, hey, how are you? How are you doing? How's everything? How's your family? What have you been up to? And it's just like, wow.
I have to go to work. I never think that way.
And it's that mentality that's kept customers coming back again and again since 1984. Reporting in Newhall, Marc Monroy.
That was amazing. I think that was really interesting to see the relationship she had with her customers. I think even small businesses like video stores still trying to keep going is really important. I want to know, what do you guys feel about like having that connection with the business owner? How important is that?
I vividly remember when I went to go ask permission to actually do a story on her. She was the sweetest person I've ever met, honestly. She's an immigrant from Asia, and she just made people feel so welcome. You know, she's been open since 1984. You know how video stores were in the 80s. She's outlasted Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, and I asked myself, how did she do that? And it's because of the community. That's why I think these small businesses keep going. And like I said before we actually showed the video, is community keeps small businesses running, and small businesses keep the community running as well. Yeah.
Thank you. I like to further discuss this later, but for now, we will be right back after this break.
Everybody in my house knows how to ride a bike except me. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike and you didn't? I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Hello and welcome back to On Point. 50% of small businesses report that they have delayed plans to grow their business in response to higher interest rates. Inflation is fueling issues from small business owners that include higher rent and layoffs that impact their labor force. Fears of recession, interest rate hikes, and reduced revenue are causing problems for small businesses. So I want to talk about the impact that inflation has on small businesses, and how do you think the rising prices are hurting them?
Well, think of it like you're buying the products, but you're not buying at the larger quantities. Companies that buy in larger quantities get a break from the seller on whether it's produce, office supplies, like anything that you can think of. Now, when the supplier raises their prices, the small business owner is kind of just left to have to pay whatever the new price is. And a lot of the times they're not going to get the same break that other companies are going. They don't get the same bailouts that larger companies do. So that's also affecting them in so many ways.
Yeah, and to add on to the big corporations getting bailouts during the COVID-19 pandemic, which stores were not allowed to stay open? Small businesses. You go to a small store, make sure you distance yourself 6 feet. Well, there's big crowds at Walmart and lesser crowds at a small business. Why is Walmart allowed to stay open but not the small business? That's kind of my question I always have, is that small businesses are sort of not recovering, especially from the pandemic. You know, a lot of them closed their doors for good once the pandemic finished, and some of them are probably on their way, as much as I don't like saying it, they're on their way to closing their doors with the loss from the pandemic and the rising interest rates on renting, the rise in prices and everything.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that a lot of them have to close. In 2020 there was also the riots, and I know a lot of the smaller businesses were the ones getting hurt by getting vandalized and getting stolen from, which is just unfair. I want to know, you said you knew someone who had a business. Can you tell me more about them?
Yeah, so my dad actually freelances for himself. And a lot of what he sees is he has to cover all of the costs for whatever he's going to be working on. He has to cover the cost of labor, cost of the product, cost of transporting it. And if anything were to happen, like let's say something breaks, it comes out of his pocket. There's really no like insurance gap or anything else that you're going to do that. And another thing that I see across the board with freelancing is that sometimes you don't get your pay. Like they will delay it. He's encountered many a times where he just has to continuously go in like, hey, do you have my check? And it comes to the point where it's like, well, I can't take the product back because it's physically installed in a home. So he just has to continue to go. Sometimes I'm having to kind of play the role of like a secretary and be like, hey, like this was done back in like 3 months ago, like can we get the check? And the person will either like not answer me, or they'll just be like, I don't have the money right now, which is insane to think that people hire somebody else who's a small business or a freelancer and ask them for a big project, and then it's like, well, I actually don't have the money to pay. And you can even see that across the board on like TikTok. You see all of those videos of small freelancing people being like, well, I'm going to take off the grass because you said that you can't pay me.
Yeah,
That's kind of like what they experience.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that before. A lot of times, some of those businesses that do construction work for housing, they actually ask them to pay upfront half of the money so that at the end they can only ask for the rest of it. But you also you actually talked to a small business about how inflation has impacted them. I'd like to take a look at that.
Across the country, small businesses are the backbone of our communities, fueling local economies and creating jobs. But today, they're facing a major challenge: inflation. Inflation doesn't just affect everyday Americans, but also small businesses. As the cost of ingredients rise, so does the cost of products.
So I have to buy, no matter where the price is of that, I have to buy the tomatoes, I have to buy the lettuce, I have to buy everything. But my prices have to stay the same. So what that does is my profit margins just get cut to where they're very low.
While grocery stores can on a daily basis fluctuate their prices up and down, other businesses cannot. To keep with business costs, employee wages, and other bills, business owners are forced to take action.
And when we do, let's say I go up another 10 cents, 25 cents on a burger, somebody walks in here and they start asking me, why is my burger, last week it was $14, now it's like $15. Like what, why is that? So people expect us to keep our prices down with the same quality, and even though we have to pay more for the ingredients. So that part of it, it's hard to explain to people when they come in. It's hard to deal with certain people that don't understand how inflation works.
As inflation continues to rise, everyday Americans and small business owners continue to struggle. The price of everything from bread to produce continues to rise. This makes it hard for small businesses to stay in the game and keep their doors open. Reporting from Burbank, California, Miriam, Frutos, On Point.
Thank you, Miriam, for making that video. It was really interesting, and I think one thing I noticed that he talked about was explaining the price differences because of inflation. Like, we're getting paid less, or our pay raise hasn't gone up, and businesses have to pay more to keep themselves afloat. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think people have to be understanding of small businesses and why they're raising their prices. I have family members who always question why prices are so high. I'm just like, are you guys aware of what's going on right now? It's like these small business owners are having to pay so much money to keep up their business. I'm willing to pay the extra $2-3 sometimes to get something that I know it's going to be quality. And yeah.
I mean, overall, I think a lot of people just don't think of it as a whole. They just think like, okay, I'm paying more. They don't think like, okay, well, I'm paying more because of this. Like, there's nothing that's controlling the price of anything. I mean, we saw it earlier in the year with gas. All of a sudden, it skyrocketed, and nobody can really give a clear, straight answer of why are we just paying like $7 a gallon. We're just kind of stuck in that, okay, I have to either pay this or go without gas. But with other businesses, like let's say restaurants, a lot of people just look at that price, or they'll, even when they're looking for a restaurant, they check like $1 sign, $2 signs, and they kind of just go with it. So if you raise your prices, you're automatically going to be kicked off of that price range, which is, you're going to start losing customers that way, and you're going to start losing your regulars at times because you're having to raise your prices to keep up with your bills.
Yeah, and you talk about that price line. Every time I look on Google Maps and I see a small business shop, it always shows the $1, $2, $3, $4 sign, and that's affected my parents' decision to go out to eat sometimes. You know, we were, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we were looking at a sushi place, not 2 weeks ago, about a month ago, and they said I had a 3 tag, and they said no, but it's a mom and pop shop. And I'm like, let's go support it. And they're like, no, they're used to big corporations and getting things cheap. That's how they are. But the dollar sign, it does affect the way people decide where to go to eat.
But you know what, even if you take that in, okay, so when you look at a business and you see like a $3 sign, for example, they're clear about they're charging you more. Now there's other companies, and I can only say one of them, which was Buffalo Wild Wings, that I went and bought something, and they have additional service fees now. And I didn't understand where it was coming from, because it was not a tip. It was just like, oh, we're going to charge you an extra $1. And I know it's just $1, but it's like, think of how many people go on a daily basis and how much that amounts to at the end of the day.
That's a lot.
So it's not just about like, okay, the price is on the menu. It's like, look at the overall thing. You're paying more even in big restaurants. You just don't see it.
Yeah, I went to the Olive Garden about 3 months ago, and it said gratuity fee already automatically applied. Or when you order from Uber Eats, they automatically send you to the tip, and they automatically put 20%. So if you don't see that and you miss that, they're going to charge you. Unlike me, I always take off the tip. I'm like, $2.
No, I was gonna actually say that, like, the tip fee that they put. Nowadays, a lot of restaurants are automatically charging tip as a part of the total without like asking or anything. Like, you have to pay it.
Yeah,
So
some.
Wait, sorry. So like I have had multiple instances where I've gone to somewhere and it's not a small business, because if it's a small business, okay, fine. I'm okay with that. But like in bigger businesses, when they're like, we're gonna add a gratuity tip, it's like, first of all, it's not legal for you to add a gratuity tip. So that's where they're sinking in those additional service fees. Yeah. So if you ever look at your receipt and it says you're automatically being charged X amount of money because you decided to sit in and dine, you can actually just be like, hey, I don't want to do it. It's super awkward, don't get me wrong, it's super awkward, but...
Or when the employees just stare at you when you're at the screen and they're just staring at you at Starbucks to tip.
Sometimes they don't make it obvious. Sometimes you pay and you don't even know what you're paying for.
Yeah, I mean, unless you go down the receipt like line by line, they can sneak in there some things.
Yeah, or when you go to McDonald's, it always says, oh, would you like to round up the 93 cents to donate? I'm like, I don't necessarily know where that donation's going. You're just saying a donation. It could possibly be you're just I'm giving the McDonald's Corporation 93 extra cents, or they're using those 93 cents to get tax benefits, because when you donate, you get tax benefits.
Yeah, well, let's hold that conversation there. I think we'll talk more about it when we come back after this short break.
There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey.
Hello and welcome back to On Point. Thank you for watching. Yelp is a popular website and app that provides local businesses with the reviews that customers can leave and read as they please. This exposure can lead to more customers and an increased trust of the business, because they can see that others have responded positively. With the good comes the bad, and the word of mouth can improve the reputation of small businesses. If the Yelp review is not in favor of the service or product provided, the owner has the opportunity to write back publicly to the review. What do you guys think of Yelp? Have you guys used that?
I haven't used it in a really long time. I honestly don't go out as much as I used to, so I feel like that's one thing that I haven't done. And I think I've stuck with Google more, just because you use Google for everything. So Google Maps is where I would probably go to.
Do you use Yelp?
Yeah, I use Yelp all the time. whenever you do go on Google Maps, Yelp is automatically attached to the reviews. You just click open in Yelp and you see all the rest of the reviews. Sometimes it's like, because opinions are opinions. You don't know what the restaurant's going to be like unless you go. It's like movie reviews. How are you going to let a critic tell you what you like and what you don't like? It's like, and some of the comments I see sometimes like are like 1.5 star reviews, and then I go to the restaurant and it's like a 5-star review in my opinion. But so it's because some people have like very ticky-tack things on what they review, but I'm more lenient when it comes to those things. So I'm more willing to try out a 2-star restaurant compared to a 4-star restaurant.
That's interesting you say that. I feel like sometimes you see one bad review and it could completely destroy a small business. A lot of times someone's bad experience can turn into multiple people fighting against that business because one person shared their story online.
Yeah, and like when I do go to the restaurant, if I don't like it, I don't go back. Simple as that. It's always good to try it just once and don't let the reviews affect you. But if you go and you don't like it and the reviews are right, then oh well, move on.
Well, I think with the reviews, you really have to read in between the lines. Is the person really reviewing the product they received? Or are they ranting about some small little thing, like Marc said, that ticked them off? Whether it was somebody didn't get to them within like 5 seconds of their arrival and now all of a sudden it was the worst experience they've ever had. So if I'm going to be reading reviews, if I'm going to be quite honest with you, I don't really pay attention to those like really low ones that have like a long paragraph. And when I have, because in my job, I have to do this every day. So I have to go through reviews. And what I've noticed, particularly with Yelp as a platform, is the people that tend to leave reviews on Yelp tend to leave more negative than positive reviews. And they're always like this 3-page essay type of review. Whereas if you go to another website like TripAdvisor or Google Reviews, they're a bit shorter and they're more to the point as like, this is what I like, this is what I didn't like, which that makes more sense to me to read into versus a rant.
So then would you guys prefer like word of mouth?
I've always preferred word of mouth, not just some stranger's opinion that I have no clue who wrote it. If family members tell me, if friends tell me where to go, I usually trust them because we all have similar tastes in what we like to eat. So I think word of mouth is pretty big, kind of like how they used to do back then. That's how businesses grew, is word of mouth. Well, obviously they didn't have Yelp back in the 50s. But yeah, word of mouth is always, I think, a key.
I think that's a more trustworthy source. Like, if you tell me that you had a good experience.
Or just go and see what it is about.
See for yourself.
I mean, my dad just goes to random restaurants sometimes.
That's me.
And that's how I learn about them. He'll take us. I like word of mouth. I've learned about so many different places just because someone told me to go. So then what's more important, like the review itself, the rating, or the amount of reviews in general?
I always look at the amount of review to review ratio. Obviously, if something has 5 stars but has 2 reviews, it's kind of like, okay, it could be their brother or their mom that left good reviews. But if something has 4 stars and has 1,000 reviews, that's more trustworthy.
Yeah, I think quantity. Unless it's a like brand new business, the amount of reviews that it has, that's something that really tells you. Also, you can kind of search a keyword on Yelp sometimes. So if you're looking specifically like a word that continues to pop up, like, I don't know, service is one of the main ones. Sometimes I don't really care for the service. Like, I don't feel like anybody has to come up to me and treat me like I'm royalty. I feel like I'm just here to get my food or whatever product I'm getting, and that's about it. So that's where I'm like, I don't know if I want to look at that.
Some people do think or expect royalty treatment sometimes. I'm just like, no, I'm just here for the product. But yeah.
So then how does big businesses compare to smaller businesses, and how is that like important?
Well, from my perspective, I can say that big businesses have a big budget to work with, whether it's for marketing or for even bringing back somebody that had a bad experience, which is something I get to do in my job. If somebody leaves a 1-star review, I can reach out to them through that same like reply comment and tell them like, hey, we're sorry about your experience, and invite them back to kind of showcase like, okay, yeah, we had a bad day, but like that's not how we normally are. Another thing is just the way that the business market themselves. Smaller businesses, because they don't have that budget, they're kind of stuck into like the one platform that's free, or even doing things like Instagram. But Instagram is full of influencers, and that's what you get for the most part on your feed, either influencers or back-end ads, which that's where I think the level playing field, I forget the expression, but I feel like they're not on the same level. Like, it's hard for them to compete at the level that big corporations like McDonald's are at.
And you keep mentioning your job. What do you do for a living?
I work in marketing, so I get to do a lot of dealing with the good, the bad reviews, you know what they say, the good, the bad, the ugly. Recently, I've really dived into like the PR influencer world, which it's insane to see that an influencer gets paid like $1,000 for one video, for one 10-second video. Now, a mom and pop shop, how are they going to do that every day? Like, how are they going to keep up with that and keep up with their costs? And I think that's where big businesses have such a huge advantage.
It also is very important. There's this TikToker by the name of Keith Lee who reviews a bunch of mom and pop shops, and he does it for free, and he goes and he pays for the foods. And this is what is helping small and pop shops. Influence is a big thing. You know, I remember vividly, I think it was during 2020, McDonald's released an ad with Travis Scott, and everybody went crazy over, oh my God, Travis Scott. But it was literally just the same item they've been selling for 40 years, just with Travis Scott's name under it, and that sold like crazy.
So then can I ask you, like, do you believe like influencers' reviews? Is it like...
Oh, I don't believe him, but I 100% believe it influences people. People are really easily influenced. I'm easily influenced, I'm not gonna lie. But I know when to be influenced and when not to. But I'm not saying like that, but like people are easily influenced. And I think that 100% big corporations have an advantage over small corporations. And it does take a Keith Lee that does it for free to get the small businesses up and running.
Yeah, I really wish there was more people like that did that for smaller businesses. And that's going to be the one thing that I have to say when it comes to whether I choose to go to a business or not. If I'm seeing a TikTok or an Instagram reel and it's somebody who's an influencer, I'm going to try to do a little bit of digging to see, is this one of those accounts that's paid, that's known that they get money to post about this? Or if is it somebody that just kind of showed up and was like, let me just post my experience just either to help out the business or just for myself because I like to do it. Because I think a lot of the time people don't realize that when you're looking at influence marketing, you're not ever going to get that same experience. And I think that's where a lot of people don't really take into account, like, oh, okay, well, this is being done. It's like a commercial. That's what I tell people. Think of it like a commercial. So basically, TV commercials have transferred into like influencer marketing.
So do you guys have any last final thoughts?
Always try a place out. Even if it has like 1 star, try it out because you don't know what's changed from the time that review was made till now, and also you don't know if that person just had a bad beef with them and they were like, I'm gonna give you a 1 star.
Yeah, be vigilant, research your topics, and like what Miriam said, just go out and try the place. If you don't like it, too bad, look for somewhere else.
Well, thank you so much, Miriam and Marc, for coming on to our show. And I want to thank our audience at home watching. This is On Point.